In progress.
Welcome into the Inside Carolina On the Beat Live. I'm your host, Tommy Ashley. We're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt, JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Take care of them. They take care of us, and they take care of you, the premium subscriber of Inside Carolina, with 10% off. With On the Beat Live comes the usual crew of Greg Barnes, Gregory Hall running the wheels, and we have the man of the hour, Taylor Viplis, joining us after Vip pulls the head coach at North Carolina to join him and Justin Jackson on the Rafters podcast. Vip, what was your biggest takeaway from talking to Coach Davis earlier?
My biggest takeaway is that he's a fan of the movie The Notebook. That would have to be the biggest thing. But honestly, I always like hearing Coach Davis talk as somebody who loves basketball, is interested in like the coaching aspect and the X's and O's, and just hearing about, how emotional he is when it comes to this North Carolina basketball team. And I think you're starting to see that kind of translate over to the players on this team. And I think it's one of the reasons why they are playing their best basketball come March, like you saw all the time with Roy Williams teams.
Greg, talking about Hubert Davis and his passion, I mean, we've talked about that all year, but it clicked at some point in the last 6 to 8 weeks for this team. And you can see the difference on the court, the connectivity, the playing for others, the not caring about who gets the success and all that kind of stuff. Where did you see it specifically turn, leading us to this point as Carolina heads to the Sweet 16 on Friday night?
Well, two things of note there, Tommy. Number one, we got to see the open practice to start the season, which is great that UNC allowed us in. And you could see some of that passion from Hubert. You could also see some of the team kind of being like, okay, like, we hear you, like, good job. I don't want to say it seemed forced, but the way the guys reacted almost was like it was forced. It was his first practice as a North Carolina head coach, all those things. Those early days of him trying to connect with the guys, of him trying to get his feet wet, we're long past that. And really, when it hit for me was after the Pittsburgh game. We made a big deal after Wake Forest and Miami. The guys were expecting, really hard practices, and they come in and Hubert's kind of like, all right, guys, look, I know we had bad games, but we can do better. Like, we're a better team than that. Let's just forget about it. Let's move on. That didn't happen after Pittsburgh. After Pittsburgh, they came back, were embarrassed, had a really hard practice, and Hubert stopped and said, all right, wait a minute. So you're playing harder now in practice against one another than you did last night on TV against the ACC opponent? Somebody explain that to me. And so just in hearing from the guys, that was a turn in how Hubert kind of addressed them. And that was something that really caught their attention. And since that Pittsburgh game, we've seen this team make significant strides. And I know that we've seen it on the court in terms of production on both ends of the court. But the way they communicate with one another, the way they openly care about one another, we did not see that early in the year. I mean, if you go back to Uncasville, I know Jeff Goodman and Rob Doster had done a podcast on court talking about these guys weren't even talking to one another on the court, and everybody saw it. Like, there was no communication. There'd be a foul. There was no huddling up. It was very awkward, and it did not bode well. I mean, look at them now. I mean, they are thrilled. They were thrilled to be able to go back into the locker room after the Baylor game to celebrate with Brady Manick. I think that says a lot about how far this team has come. I think it says a lot about the growth that Hubert Davis has had in year one. But really, since that Pittsburgh game, Tommy, I mean, this team has really turned it up. And I think Hubert really getting after him after that loss was the fire that they needed.
The biggest stat that kind of makes that point like tangible, I think, through these first two NCAA tournament games, Carolina has 51 assists on 62 field goals, where you're seeing guys who are enjoying each other's success, putting each other in the best spot possible. And when you're looking at 51 assists on 62 field goals, those are numbers that are like rivaling, the 2016 team that went to the national championship against Villanova, or the 2017 team that went to the championship and beat Gonzaga. Like, that's how impressive they have been. And you are seeing a team that is enjoying each other's success now, I think.
Yeah, and what's the Dean Smith quote? It's amazing what we can accomplish when nobody cares who gets the credit. And I think that is what we've seen, and that's what you guys are explaining. And Gregory, quite frankly, the Baylor game never happens if that cohesiveness and that growth, it doesn't happen on either end of it. The 25-point lead, the game itself, but the 25-point lead or the comeback for sure doesn't happen if this team's just not totally bought in to Coach Davis and also to each other.
Yeah, and I mean, they played 3 different games on Saturday, right? Like 30 minutes of just beat you down, we're better than you, we're more confident than you basketball. 10 minutes of holy crap, we suck. And
Never seen a ball before.
Right, like I don't know how to inbound the ball. I don't know how to go against the press. And listening to Armando today of explaining what was wrong against the press, they basically didn't do a single thing that they're supposed to do. He was like, well, we kept taking into the corner, and then the guards were supposed to run long, and they came close, and we were supposed to have 2 guys set up in T's running out routes, and they were running in routes, and it was just a complete mess. And I can't imagine what the film review was like, because Hubert said they just looked at the 10 minutes and then overtime. But to your point, I loved what Hubert said today about what he said in the huddle, and it was very similar to what I believe it was the Clemson game right before the game-winning play, where he was just like, he made the joke. He was like, all right, guys, we need to go play more basketball. Isn't that awesome? And he was just like, you could see everybody was like, Coach, no, like we just blew a really big lead. Like, what are you talking about? And then the whole thing, it's like, guys, if I had told you yesterday that we had 5 minutes to beat Baylor in a tie game to go to the Sweet 16, would you take it? And they all said yes. He's like, all right, we have it. Like, we're here. And then RJ took it upon himself, and the maturity of the team, like 2 months ago, they're losing that game by 20 in overtime. Right? I mean, 20 might be an exaggeration, but they're just not even coming close to it. So it's pretty surreal when you look at 14 of 17, and 5 of their last 8 games, they've won 7 of them, and 5 have been by double digits. And the only really game that was down to the wire, obviously I guess Baylor game wasn't double digits, but the Virginia Tech game was down to the wire, the Louisville game, and things like that. So it's pretty crazy.
Vip, you asked Justin Jackson, and I mentioned it on the post game with Dewey. I think that you talking about a blur of a podcast. That is one, but and I want you guys to comment. What's more impressive, the fact that they were blowing Baylor out of the gym, or the fact that they somehow won that game without Manic and Love? I think it's the fact that they were able to win that game after not only did the wheels come off, the engine blew up, and it ran into the deep ditch. I mean, we've never seen a meltdown like that. And we can talk about the officiating all you want. Carolina did a plenty to help it.
Nobody has seen a meltdown like that. Like,
I know
the
you
NCAA
texted
tournament.
me. You texted me, and you were like, "That was almost the biggest choke job in the history of the NCAA basketball tournament." Vip, I think the fact that somehow they stitched it together with some wire and some duct tape and managed to beat Baylor in overtime is more impressive than getting the lead in the first place.
I think in the moment, the fact that they were able to win without Manic and without Love was more impressive. But what I think we learned the most from, and moving forward in the NCAA tournament, I think it would be that the starting 5 was able to build a 25-point lead and run this Baylor team out of the gym, because I think you've seen this team in spurts this year where it looks like they could put it all together. But I think outside of the Duke game in Cameron Indoor, you really haven't had too many opportunities where you've seen this team put it together for, longer than a 4 or 5 minute stretch. And I think on Saturday was the first time where it kind of felt real, like this team does have enough talent. Even though I've been saying that, I think me and Rel have kind of been on that, planting our flag that this team has top 10, top 15 talent. But Saturday was the first time that it felt real and felt some kind of validation that this team could be a team that goes to the Final Four, or even in the wildest dreams cuts down the nets at the end of the season.
Greg, let me ask you about, and people are asking about Dontrez Styles and all, but you've covered Carolina for a long time now. I've been paying attention for way too long. And every time Carolina's been in a tournament of note, especially when they've won national championship, it's been a guy that did something in a game that nobody expected. I'll never forget Billy Packer giving Dean Smith hell for having Scott Cherry and Pat Sullivan on the court in the '93 national championship game. Melvin Scott hits free throws against, I believe, Villanova in 05. Dontrez Styles is now taking that mantle. Justin McCoy was out there a lot. We could talk about him. He grew up a lot. He certainly had some struggle moments, but made some big plays. But Greg, is Styles that guy that gives Carolina an extra bonus aside from the starting five that Vip talks about being good enough to beat anybody?
Yeah, and let's not forget Mr. May, of course, right? The big shot against Kentucky in the Elite Eight back in 2017, and he did nothing in the Final Four, but he didn't need to. That really set his career moving forward.
Yeah, trivia question: how many points did Luke May score in the Final Four in 2017? How many, Vip?
I'm gonna guess 0.
Your guess is correct. Go ahead, Greg. So he hit one of the biggest shots in Carolina history, turned into be one of the best players in Carolina lore, and scored a 0 in the Final Four. Just fascinating.
So a couple things here. Number one, I think Vip is exactly right that the way that the starting five played was phenomenal. And we haven't really seen this team stack impressive performances on top of one another. We've seen them beat a down FSU team. We've seen them beat a down NC State team. And a lot of times when they did that, they'd come back and they'd lay an egg. And that's been the story all season long. I mean, even after beating Duke, while they beat Virginia bad, I mean, they shot woefully in that first round of the ACC tournament. I mean, I want to say they were below 40% shooting. So while they played good defensively, it wasn't an all-around good performance. Well, they've stacked two excellent performances on top of one another. And against Baylor, I want to give credit where credit is due. I believe it is poster UNC 879 wins. He does plus minus after every single game. The starters, the 5 starters against Baylor, against a number 1 seed, were plus 19. And we know Brady Manick went out with 10.5 minutes left. Plus 19 against the number 1 seed. Phenomenal. And not only were they really good offensively, they were really good defensively. So what happens? Brady Manick goes out. The wheels fall off. Officials helped a little bit, of course, but they were wobbled. And when Baylor tied it up and forced overtime, I didn't think Carolina had much of a shot. And then Dontrez Styles hits one of the biggest shots in Carolina basketball history that won't ever get the credit that it deserves. And what did RJ Davis say today? He said, as soon as that shot went in, RJ looked around and says, we're good. And I think everybody watching felt the same way, because as soon as that shot went down and Baylor, who had battled back from 25 down to tie it, saw that they were down once again by 3 points, it was like the balloon let out of that building. The air let out of the balloon in that building. Just a massive shot. And for him to play, what did he play, 25 minutes, career high? And he played a lot of minutes early, too. It wasn't like he just played after Brady got knocked out. And he's just been playing well. He's a key component for this team, I think, in the weeks to come if North Carolina is able to continue this run. Because as Baycott said today, they really don't have any depth in the post. It's Baycott and Brady. And that's it. And so if Styles can step in and give you quality minutes there, that's good. But more importantly, that sets the tone for him moving forward. He's got a bright future ahead of him. Great athlete, but what a clutch shot by a young man.
So
I'll tell you
you
what,
mentioned oh, sorry, Tommy.
well, my bad. If Carolina goes on to win the national championship, people will talk about that shot
Sure.
forever. Yeah. Absolutely. That'll be the Villanova and the Sweet 16 play.
Ty Lawson in the second half against Arkansas. Yeah.
All those type things contingent on winning the national championship. Certainly the biggest shot of the season. Go ahead, Gregory.
Yeah, one, there's a bunch of new posters in the chat, so shout out to y'all for commenting for the first time. Glad you're here. Second, Greg, you mentioned the starters. Evan Maya, I've brought up his analytics before, right? So he tracks 2-man lineups, 3-man lineups, 4-man lineups, 5-man lineups. You look at the 5-man lineups. Of the remaining Sweet 16 teams, that UNC's 5 starters are 5th in offensive efficiency, and then 6th overall when you take into defensive efficiency. Iowa State's his offense is lower, but their defense is higher. However, UNC starting 5 has played 840 possessions together. The next highest in the Sweet 16 is Arizona, that's played Gonzaga's played 755, and then Arizona's played 560. No one else has played more than 400 possessions together. So when Hubert talks about chemistry and cohesiveness, it's almost forced at this point because they played 840 possessions together.
And you could make an argument that's the only reason that they've kind of figured it out is everybody's had to play so much together.
And they're one of the most efficient on the it's like they've played 840 positions, but they're still like top 5 in the country and with the remaining teams. Like, it's not an accident that this team is in the Sweet 16.
It's fascinating to watch their development. Like you said, forced chemistry, and they've had to do it, but it's worked out. Vip, when you're talking to Justin Jackson, you're talking to Coach Davis earlier, and you guys discussed styles and all, and not Dontrez styles, but styles of play. And Hubert Davis has spoke openly about his love for Brady Manick. I mean, we'll talk about this a lot, but I don't think there's never been a better marriage in player to style than Brady Manick to what Hubert Davis needed this year. I mean, and we're seeing it sort of pay fruits here in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that was one of the numbers that I pulled up when I was looking at how impressive the 51 assists to 62 field goals was. The other stat that I was kind of debating which one was more impressive was Brady Manick scoring 54 points in 61 minutes through the first 2 tournament games. And I think the biggest takeaway from talking to Coach Davis and talking to Justin Jackson is like, when Coach Davis envisioned his new like modern style of offense and having somebody like Armando Bacot in the post, Brady Manick, you couldn't get a more perfect complement to what Coach Davis wants to do when you're also considering the fact that Armando Bacot is manning the post down low, and he's able to run so many, stack pick and roll options where Davis comes off a screen, Manick is flaring out for a top of the 3, and then all of a sudden the defense, they have so many things that they're trying to account for that you're seeing why Carolina is getting a lot more better looks as Coach Davis has trusted Davis more and more as the season has kind of went on. And I think that you really couldn't have asked for a better year from Brady Manick in terms of, expectations and how he's been able to kind of handle everything that's kind of come with being a Carolina basketball player this season.
Yeah, Vip, and you mentioned the system. Hubert was asked about it today, and I thought it was interesting. He pointed to around the Boston College time. I believe that's when Puff was out with COVID. Was it Puff?
I think it was McCoy who was out.
Okay.
Yeah,
McCoy was out with COVID, and Dawson got his concussion. And Hubert pointed to that as they started to tweak some things offensively. And with Dawson out and Brady, when Brady wasn't in, they had to put Leaky at the 4. And Hubert saw how well it worked in practice playing small and was kind of like, this is going really well. Like, I like this. And since then has even moved Brady more into that kind of smaller 4 lineup. Less like when he hits the post, it's not really to post up as much as it is to cut or off ball screens and things like that. And that's kind of where's the evolution of that offense. And Brady has really fit in since then, since it's even more of a 4 out 1 in than it was. Because when Dawson was here, they really did have 2 guys in the post at times. Not every time, but still more so than we've seen now. And that's kind of, I thought that was interesting of him pointing to that time frame as kind of the evolution of the offense that we see now. Like, it hasn't been this way all year.
Yeah, Justin was talking about how big a mismatch Manic is at that small ball for a lineup. And I think the other thing from Coach Davis was that, he is willing to tweak his offense. He is willing to get input from somebody like Coach Sullivan, who has 18 years of experience in the NBA, somebody like Jeff Lebo, who was a college head coach and a coach in the G League and is familiar with having to adapt your offense to the more modern times. And, he was talking about Justin's national championship team, and he was like, that team had Tony Bradley, it had Isaiah Hicks, it had Kennedy Meeks. I wouldn't be running the same offense that I am today if I had that personnel. So I think if you're a Carolina fan, it has to be encouraging to hear how willing to adapt your head coaches to whatever kind of personnel and whatever changes, because you do have a lot of coaches who they have their system, they're going to run their system, they're going to try to recruit for their system. And if pieces don't fit, they're going to keep trying to fit that circle into a square peg until, their season kind of flames out. But Coach Davis has been on the forefront to make adjustments and make changes to his offensive and even the defensive schemes to fit his personnel better. And that's one of the reasons why Carolina is playing past the first weekend.
Yeah, I think the ability to adapt on the fly and to change things on the fly is something that he's done incredibly well. Let me ask about RJ Davis, or ask about RJ Davis. And Greg, I want to get your thoughts on this. I don't know if I've ever seen a guy go 1 for 10 with 12 assists and then less than 48 hours later go for 30. I mean, tell me that's something we've seen before, because I can't recall. And not only did he have the 12 assists, I mentioned the 1 for 10 shooting, and to come back with the 30 after that. That's as impressive as a run for a Carolina point guard or Carolina league guard that I can recall.
For sure. And, I think he was the catalyst in Cameron. I mean, the way that he ran the offense and controlled the ball, especially in the second half, was impressive. And we just haven't seen that type of point guard play at Carolina in a couple years. And so that was really impressive, and speaks to, beginning of the year, it was very much Caleb and RJ are both going to kind of run the show. And what we've seen last month or so is RJ is the point guard. There's no question about it. So you expect him to be able to run the offense, but the way that he stepped up and was just willing to knock down shots. I mean, he had 8 points the first 3 minutes on Saturday. It just kind of speaks to his development and his confidence more than anything. And Ross asked him during the press conference on Tuesday, and it was a good point. The fact that he's able to hit some of these incredibly difficult shots in the paint reminds me a little bit of Marcus Page. Marcus Page had a little bit of problems early in his career where he'd get inside and maybe get some shots blocked, or at least have to change his attempt because he's such a small guy. RJ is so quick with getting the ball up and taking correct angles. We didn't see that last year, and we didn't really see that at the beginning of the year. And that has just been an incredible development for him, to where now when he drives, teams have to take account for him. And that makes it easier for him on the perimeter. And while he's not the first guy looking for his shot, that's Brady and that's Caleb, he's willing to knock him down. And he's had some really good games this year, played really well against Syracuse, and of course the Duke game. But for him to lead the team the way that he did, both in facilitating on Friday or Thursday, and then scoring 30, like you said, on Saturday, just a heck of a weekend.
3 things on that. One, it was Adam's question
Sorry,
because
Adam.
Adam was like, because he was like, no offense, but you don't really have any hops, and RJ was like, what? Excuse you? Two, he made a very similar drive at the end of the game against Louisville, got his stuff swatted, and went to overtime. 3, and he talked about it today, I think it's part of the maturing process. He recognized that he did not do what he was supposed to do at the end of regulation, right? He settled for a jump shot. He got the mismatch, and he said he was supposed to drive. Well, then in overtime, he drives, gets the and one, and does that tough finish. And I think those 2 things are just showing who RJ has become, because he got his stuff swatted in a very similar drive because he didn't adjust. He just went up as a smaller guy, and then in game made the adjustment to drive and seal the game with that and one.
Yep. And Tommy, not to jump around, so I apologize, but I don't want this to get lost. Brady Manick against Tier A opponents. So Ken Palm ranks that as top 50 opponents in his rankings. He's shooting 41% from 3 against top 50 opposition this year. Phenomenal.
Yeah, and I mean, there are times I mentioned it when he missed 5 shots the other night. I don't remember him missing 5 shots. I mean, it just looked like everything he threw up went in. Back to RJ, one could argue that the first 3 of the game for Carolina changed the possible trajectory of that game, because it was 4-0 Baylor and they were rolling, and that was a late last second shot clock shot that cut it to 4-3, and then Carolina jumped off. Let's take a short break, talk about Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Great sponsors of Inside Carolina, great sponsors of this podcast. They certainly support us. We need to support them, shop local, take care of them on the Inside Carolina. If you're a premium subscriber with Inside Carolina, you get 10% off, but go see them on Franklin Street. It's baseball season in Chapel Hill. Might be storming Franklin Street here in a couple of weeks. Go see Johnny T-Shirt while you're there. Look after them. They've got all the gear you could possibly want for Carolina sports related, tailgating, everything. They're good friends. They need to be your good friends. You need to take care of them. Let the national guys pay the bills. We'll be right back with On the Beat. We're going to talk a little UCLA in the Sweet 16 when we come back. Back with On the Beat Live. I'm Tommy Ashley. That's Greg Barnes, Gregory Hall, and Taylor Vipolis joining us. A lot of questions, guys, in the chats about how Carolina deals with UCLA. I think it's a pretty good matchup for Carolina. Injuries or not for UCLA, we saw Jaquez go down late in their round of 32 game. Greg, a lot of people talking about who Leaky guards. I mean, is there really a question who Leaky guards in this game?
There's not. It's Johnny Juzang. I think that's pretty easy. I think it sets up well for him. I mean, when you talk about injuries, and it's Jaquez. Yep. He is the one that had the bad ankle injury. He's battled ankle injuries throughout his career. He's a tough kid. So all expectations are that he will play, but he's not going to be at 100%. He did not practice today. They've got him on a day-to-day thing. He may go through shoot around before the game, the days leading up, but I don't expect him to do much more than that. But he's got to defend Brady unless they decide they've got other options. They got some good depth, so they've got other guys they can bring in to defend Brady. But then you lose basically your heart and soul in Jaquez. He's been kind of a Hoss tough guy for him. Cody Riley's their center. I think he's a big physical guy. He's not an elite talent. And so I think Baycott has an advantage there. And then you get into guard play, and it's not like UCLA has these massive guards. They have skilled guys, but nobody that's going to overpower RJ or Caleb. So, yeah, I think it's a good matchup for Carolina. I mean, UCLA is very solid. They don't push tempo, very methodical. They're good on both ends of the court. So there's nothing that you can really say, okay, well, this is a weakness. We can exploit it. You're going to have to play well, but there's really nothing that UCLA does that you look at Carolina and say, they're going to really struggle against that. So I think given that this is a Sweet 16 game, it works in Carolina's favor on a lot of these boxes.
It's crazy how slow UCLA plays. like considering how efficient and good their offense is. Like, I mean, they're 270th in tempo, but their offense is 12th. I don't know if I've seen those type of numbers before.
That's like Virginia-esque, but it
Right.
doesn't look like Virginia when they play.
Virginia's
Vip,
offense has never been that efficient.
It's the
well,
bright
back when
lights
they
of
had
Hollywood.
what matchup you looking forward to, Vip?
It would probably be Leaky and Johnny Juzang if that's the matchup Hubert Davis goes with, and I think that's the matchup everybody kind of expects, just because you have such a dynamic offensive player in Juzang who made this incredible Final Four run last year, and then you have somebody like Leaky Black, who I think the term that gets thrown around with him is he's essentially an eraser, where you put him on the other team's best player and he kind of disrupts the entire flow of what that other team is trying to do if you're cutting off the head of their best player. So if Leaky can get an advantage there, it kind of sets the rest of the Carolina team up for more success on the defensive end. And UCLA, they're not like from the games I've watched, they're not really a physical like a team that wants to, just beat you up with physicality, where Baylor tried to do that, Marquette tried to do that, but they do have I would say they have good length for starting four guards. Tiger Campbell's the only one who's 5'11", and then everybody else in their starting lineup is 6'7" or above. So I think seeing who Caleb Love guards would be another interesting aspect, because they're all about 6'7", 6'8", kind of in that range, and you would assume Campbell's going to be guarded by Davis. So UCLA doesn't really have the opportunity to take advantage of them, because I think you've seen, even going back to the Virginia Tech game, Virginia Tech, Marquette, Baylor, all their first couple of possessions have been trying to put RJ Davis in the post and trying to post him up. So I don't think UCLA has that luxury when you're starting somebody like Campbell, who's checking in under 6 foot.
I think it's a great matchup for RJ Davis. And that's when I look at Carolina's defensive matchups, we know Leakey's going to take somebody out of the game. Baycott's going to take the biggest guy. I think in this game, Carolina matches up as good as you can expect at this level. Now, the Elite Eight might be a little different depending on who wins the game on the other side of the bracket, but Tiger Campbell and RJ Davis will be a fantastic matchup to watch, because I don't think they're that big a difference type player. I mean, everybody's going to say the hair and the style and all, and the size, but I think they play pretty similar. Gregory, we haven't looked at. I mean,
I
I think Manic needs to be big. I think Caleb Love, question, I'll start it here. I'll give you this. Can UNC survive another 5-point performance by Caleb Love? I freely admit I didn't think they could have the other day, but they did.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say no, just because Caleb's 5-point performances usually come with mistakes attached to it. So it's very often he has a 5-point performance with. I mean, he's never had a 5-point performance with 12 assists like RJ Davis had, right? So if he can do that, then yeah, fine. If he can create shots, which he might be able to with the way, like with Tiger Campbell guarding RJ might be able to hunt his shot more off the ball. So it'll be interesting to see what that happens. Since if UCLA switches, maybe not, but if he doesn't, it'll be interesting to see that. But one thing that I'm curious to see is when UCLA has the ball, how often they go 5 out and try to pull Armando away from the basket and try to get UNC in one-on-one defense. And I think even though UNC has gotten better defensively, which we can all agree on that, they've been able to stay with their man more, move their feet better across the board, not just Leaky. They're still, outside of Leaky, susceptible to one-on-one. And so if UCLA can pull Armando out and go 5 out a majority of possessions in their slow half-court methodical offense, I think that could make that could cause struggles for UNC on the defensive end. So I'm curious how often, if at all, UCLA goes that approach, because that'd be one thing I would look at to try to mix things up and try to frustrate Baycott and pull him away from the basket.
Thing about it is, if you play 5 out, then you still got to play on the other end of the court. And Vip, that leads Baycott to have a smaller guy on him, and he's going to destroy that guy if he can stay out of foul trouble.
Well, I just mean with their. I mean, they've got four guys that are 6'7", so it's just like they don't. It's not like they would. Like their lineup is small. It's not like they would be doing something differently. Like there's going to be a mismatch on the offensive end for UNC with Baycott. There's just going to be, and even with Brady to a certain extent. But on the other side of the ball, I think it would behoove UCLA to take advantage of being undersized and not make, because Baycott's become a serious rim protector recently. He's been able to block more shots than he has earlier in the season. So that's why I'm kind of looking for that.
What do you think, Vip?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, and trying to pull Baycott out. You look at somebody like Riley, who's Baycott's projected matchup, and he's only shot like 8 threes this season, but he's hitting them at he's 4 for 8. So it's like he's shown he's capable of hitting threes, but he really hasn't shown that he's that comfortable to step outside. And maybe it's a case of the Pac-12, they just really didn't need him to kind of stretch the floor and pull him out from the interior. But I think the other thing I'm kind of looking forward to seeing with Baycott when it comes to like the X's and O's is how Mick Cronin kind of handles Armando Baycott on the defensive end, because like Gregory was just mentioning, when Carolina's on offense, they should have a huge advantage with Baycott down low and what he kind of can do offensively. And you saw a team like Virginia Tech, Mike Young, he got pretty creative, through different looks at Armando Baycott all game, threw his rhythm off the team for whatever reason, whether it was Baycott's a lack of getting Baycott involved or just tired legs. Carolina was never in that game from start to finish. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how Mick Cronin handles Armando Baycott and tries to take away Carolina's biggest advantage, most likely.
Greg, how do you see that shaking out? One thing that against Virginia Tech that I noticed, and I'll freely admit I didn't go back and watch it, but when they doubled Baycott in a variety of ways, it was always Leaky that was in the corner. I would have probably tried to swap and put Caleb down in the corner and force Caleb's man to try to double from the angle they were doing. But Greg, how do you think Cronin? Because I kind of like Cronin, and I've always kind of liked UCLA, to be honest with you. And we saw the run that they had last year. So they're certainly capable. But how do they deal with Baycott inside, you think?
I think what we've seen out of North Carolina, the first 2 games and really the last month of the season, is that they can really shoot the ball from outside. And so if you get in a situation where you're trying to double Baycott in the post, then you get into help rotation. And if Carolina's moving the ball the way that they should be, RJ or Caleb or Brady's going to get a pretty good look from 3. I think that's dangerous, because if Carolina gets hot, we've talked about it all year, when somebody gets hot, it's like the whole team gets hot. But if somebody's cold, a lot of them get cold. And you don't want Carolina to get hot. And so I think when you've got guys like Cody Riley and Miles Johnson, who are big athletic guys, they're not elite talents necessarily, but they're effective at what they do. They can defend Baycott. Is Baycott going to win his battles? Sure, of course he is. But would you rather him score 16 points or 18 points and you do a pretty good job on the perimeter? Or would you rather shut down Baycott and hold him to 12 points and Brady gets a couple open looks that gets him going? Virginia Tech had no choice because they're small. And Justin Mutz is not a true center. He's a power forward. Luma is the same way. But I think when you've got legitimate size in the post like UCLA does, you just play man up. And if you want to drop some double screen or double track, what am I trying to say here? Some double teams. Sorry. Occasionally, sure, you can mix it up. But if that's your game plan all day long, I think you're going to have problems. So play man up and really make sure you defend the the perimeter to the best of your ability. That's probably your best bet if you're looking at it from a UCLA perspective.
Somebody in the chat said, let Baycott get his and then don't let Carolina get hot from the outside. The problem is if Baycott gets both. What's a bigger stat, Gregory? Baycott 18 points or Baycott 14 rebounds? Granted, he does this. He
I was going to
does
say
both
that's
of them.
probably his stat line on Friday. I mean,
But if he goes 10 and 14, is that better for UCLA than if he goes 18 and 6? You know what I mean? That means Carolina's not rebounding the ball
yeah,
as well.
10 and 14 would be better. I mean, because that means if he's not getting the rebounds, there's probably, I mean, other UNC players rebound the ball, but it also probably means UCLA is hitting a lot more shots. And I think Baycott just, and I think it's funny the way everyone on UNC says it. They talk about Baycott. He's like, Armando does what Armando does. Like, it's just like expected. Like, they all talk about, yeah, RJ was hot. Like, he's gotten so much better. He's making shots when Caleb's on, when Brady's on, all this stuff. And they're just like, yeah, like Armando, doing his thing down there, which he's should be able to do. And to answer your question, if it's 18 and 6, I don't think UNC wins compared to if he's 10 and 14.
That's a great point about Baycott, that it's almost like an afterthought.
100%.
Where Davis has kind of had his moments, Love has his moments, Manick has his moments, and then you're so used to Baycott putting up 16 and 12, what he's averaged this entire season, and then the broadcast starts talking about it, or you get stats sent out, and it's like, the last person that kind of put up these kind of numbers on this kind of efficiency that Baycott has put up was Tim Duncan at Wake Forest. And it kind of puts everything back into perspective. Like, yeah, he is the best player on this team, and he's probably been the most consistent player from start to finish.
He's at 27 double-doubles, I believe. So if they win on Friday, he literally has a chance to tie the all-time ACC record of 29, which is held by Tim Duncan.
Yeah, I've been watching the ACC tournament thing, and of course I remember it because that was right in the heyday. But Tim Duncan was just a monster. You want to get the blood boiling. Let's talk about Leakey and Baycott not getting some postseason ACC awards, but they're bigger fish out there to fry. Greg, what are we missing with this matchup?
Hold on, can I ask Greg a question?
If you'd like, sure.
Scott Holland brought up the question about comparing Baylor and UCLA's defensive numbers. As far as KenPom and efficiency, they're like 91.0 and 91.1. How are their defenses different as far as what we'll see on the court Friday? I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Well, Baylor is very much an aggressive on-ball defensive team. And so what they did, they averaged 18.5 points off turnovers per game, which is crazy. Just because they got in the passing lanes. They were their guards are great, very good at the point of attack. And they turn you over and get up and down the court at a quick pace. UCLA's not like that. They do a very good job with team defense. They're a very good rebounding team. And that's what, when you start talking about efficiency numbers, one of the reasons Carolina always ranks at the top is because they're like top 5 nationally in offensive rebounding percentage. And that's important because you don't have to shoot very well if you get all the offensive rebounds, because you get multiple possessions in one trip down the court. And so UCLA does a very good job turning their opponents over. It's not an elite level. They do a very good job defensive rebounding. And then they're very good with staying with their man and doing a good job with help rotations. So all across the board, they're very solid. There's not one particular thing, kind of like Baylor does. UCLA is just a very good, well-coached team.
I guarantee you that they may play similar defense numbers wise, but it ain't gonna be the same defense. I mean, Baylor is in your face, sometimes deeper than that, as we saw on Saturday. It was interesting when I was watching Baylor play Carolina, and they were up 25, and this is before it went all off the rails. And Carolina was in the bonus at 15-minute mark in the second half. I was like, this game's over because they can't play solid defense without fouling. And Carolina just shoot free throws for the rest of the game, similar to what the Carolina women did against Arizona when they got that lead. Arizona couldn't play defense without getting fouls called. We saw how it kind of went. with the men. Vip, I'll come to you since Gregory had that great question for Greg. And what are we missing here? What are we missing about this matchup? Why do we feel, at least I do, why do I feel so good about Carolina matching up against UCLA, whereas there's a matchup on the other side of the bracket with Purdue, potentially with Purdue, that I would not feel good about? Why does UCLA seem like a good one for Carolina?
I think the fact that they're not coming in 100% healthy is reason to feel better about Carolina's chances. And then I also think that Hubert Davis has mentioned it, 40,000 times the past month and a half, that this is the healthiest his Carolina team has been up to this point, where you see guys who are enjoying playing with each other. We haven't talked about their effort. We haven't talked about their toughness in, a month and a half. And if this team does go out of the tournament on Friday, it's not going to be because of their toughness or because of their effort. It's most likely going to be, UCLA just playing great team defense, containing Carolina's shots. Certain things just didn't fall Carolina's way. And, you get to 16 teams left in the tournament. It's either one of these teams can win. So I'm looking forward to this being a good matchup between two coaches that kind of have their team playing their best basketball. I think Mick Cronin kind of showed that last year, where his team they go from the playing game to the Final Four, and it's almost the same exact team that he brought back this season. And then you have a coach like Coach Davis in his first year, who's kind of learning on the fly, making adjustments. And then the other thing I was going to say about that is, you mentioned not really wanting to play Purdue. I think I'm on the opposite side. I don't want to play St. Peter's if I'm Carolina.
How do you root against St. Peter's, man?
I would love to see Carolina play
Just
that
because
game.
of the zone? Is that what you're thinking, Taylor?
I don't want to
No,
play.
because they got New York City boys.
I don't want to. I don't want to play these
Oh.
guys with a chip on their shoulders. Shaheen Holloway is kind of taking the tournament by storm. If you get to Sunday, the problem is for Carolina, you're going to have your fans in the building, and then everybody else is going to be rooting for St. Peter's. Everybody in America is going to be rooting for St. Peter's if you get to an Elite Eight matchup against them.
Greg,
what I'm
do you
rooting
want
for?
to inform Taylor about what chip on shoulder means?
No, why don't you go ahead, Gregory? I think that was fascinating.
So I was curious, right? We're sitting in the bowels of Dickey's Arena, and I don't know, they kept bringing it up, and I was like, where the heck does that come from? So it's from the 1830s. There's like a not sports article, but there's like an article in some Syracuse paper talking about boys that were looking for a fight. So if they were just like angsty, they would put a piece of wood on their shoulder and walk around daring people to knock it off and start a fight.
That is hardcore.
So it literally means chip of wood on the shoulder.
Isn't that
And,
like didn't they used to put like something on the show and say "knock it off, I dare you"? It was some commercial anyway.
And
Go ahead.
Gregory, I know you're a big Ken Palm guy. St. Peter's, their offensive efficiency rating is 226. Go ask Kentucky if they think St. Peter's offensive efficiency is in the 200s.
I'd rather Carolina play St. Peter's. I'd rather Carolina get there first, so we'll have something to talk about. But I think Carolina matches up well against UCLA. Greg, last question for the show, and everybody can chip in if they want. Get it, Gregory? Chip. How
I
does
cut
Carolina
Greg
win
off,
this?
by the way, so if he had something to say, and I'm cutting you off now, you know what? It's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah, you had gotten better on that. Greg, what does Carolina do? Give me some numbers that will, if I just look at the numbers at 11:30, 12 o'clock on Friday night, I'll say, well, Carolina won that game.
Well, over the last month of the season, Carolina, I think, is top 10 nationally in defensive efficiency. And so while we can talk about the offensive production, which has been elite at times, they've been really good defensively. And I think in order to beat UCLA, because UCLA is crafty offensively, they are fun to watch. I know people don't like to watch Virginia. Virginia is one of those teams, to me, it's kind of like hockey. Like if you watch it in person, it's much more entertaining. But UCLA has some very skilled offensive players, a lot of guys with high offensive ratings, and they're going to be able to score. They don't rely on the three-point shot necessarily, but I think they're going to be able to get some points. And so if Carolina does a really good job defensively, that reduces the necessity for Carolina to be hot from three. And even if Carolina is hot from three, if Carolina plays good defensively, that sets the stage for potential 10-0 burst like we've seen a lot lately. You get a 10-point lead on UCLA, which their style of play, it's going to be tough for them to really kind of battle back. So I think it begins on the defensive end. If Carolina can hold UCLA under, say, 42%, I think that'll give you a pretty good indication that Carolina is advancing to Elite Eight. And what I was going to say is, if they win the Elite Eight game, we may finally
Yes.
get UNC Duke in the Final Four.
Give me it. Give me it.
Bring all of it.
You can tell a youngin there. I don't know now. Texas Tech's
I
pretty
was
strong.
talking to Brendan Marks about that, and he was like, "God, no, please, no." And I was like, "What do you
Bring
mean?"
it.
I was like, "Bring it on." He was like, "It would upset the balance of the rivalry." I don't give a f. That
Coach
would be
K
awesome.
is on the way out. Roy's already left. Let's blow it all up.
Thank you.
The playing in the semifinals wouldn't upset it. Playing in the national championship would change everything, because it wouldn't matter if you won 100 straight. They'd be like, still got you for the national championship. Vip, what's the headline? Last question of the day, Gregory. I'm cutting you off with
Yeah,
that.
you're fine.
You can come talk to me on Saturday. Oh, and by the way, are you in town?
Yep.
So we're going to do the post game live with a special guest after the Carolina UCLA game. Vip, what's the headline Saturday morning when we wake up if Carolina advanced?
I would think it would be kind of going back to the Leaky Juzang point earlier, where Leaky wins the matchup, and if Juzang is a single digit scorer on Saturday, I think that would have to bode well for Carolina's chances to win this matchup. If he's not having an efficient game. And the other thing that I think should give UNC fans some confidence is the fact that the ACC is 8-2 in this NCAA tournament so far, where everybody was kind of down on the ACC all year, and all they've done this tournament is just win games, and they have three teams in the Sweet 16, while most conferences have one or maybe two at best. And I think the way that Duke, North Carolina, and Miami are all kind of playing right now should inspire some confidence in the conference as a whole, that maybe these are the most tested and the most prepared teams heading into the second weekend of the tournament.
How about how the Hurricanes played?
Their guard, I
How
would
about
not
that,
want to play
Gregory?
their guards.
That
I would
was-
not want to play their guards.
That
I
was
love
phenomenal.
watching them play.
Their guards are dogs. I would not want anything to do with them.
So let's do this. Who advances to the Final Four? Give me the Final Four teams. We won't pick Carolina's bracket because you guys are covering the game. We'll do the old Herb Street rule. Who comes out of the West? Gregory.
Arizona. They get back on track after. Are they in the West?
No, Duke's in the West. Gonzaga and Duke.
Gonzaga will get to the Final Four.
Vip, West.
Texas Tech.
I like it.
Greg, West.
Gonzaga. I got them winning the whole thing.
I'm playing devil's advocate right here because I do have Gonzaga winning the whole.
Come on.
I have
But
Arizona.
This is the bracket's second chances. I'm switching. I've seen enough. I think I'm switching.
I have Arizona beating Kentucky, so I'm still alive in at least one matchup in the entire bracket. I think I'm dead last in my family bracket. You got to be kidding, and that includes kids, family. We even adopted a kid and got him in there because he didn't have. It's been awful, absolutely awful, boys. It's been fun. So
you didn't finish
next-
We've got two more brackets to go through there, homeboy.
well, they already picked their winner.
Yeah, but
East, Gregory. Carolina's bracket. Do it
well,
again.
I was gonna say, well, I see my head's lost. Who does Kansas play?
Providence.
Oh, probably Kansas then. Either Kansas or Miami. I'll go Kansas.
I also have Kansas.
I had. Well, you know who I had.
Sherelle has Gonzaga. I just don't believe in Gonzaga, though. Drew Timme went off the other night. That was
Arizona's my
impressive.
champion, if you guys care.
I think
What is it going to
Arizona-
take for people to believe in Gonzaga?
They
They're going to have
Man.
to win the title, right?
Yeah. 100%.
I mean,
Baylor
Ah.
hurt Gonzaga's belief badly last year.
They
And I
have
think
more
Arizona will
NCAA
do the same
tournament
thing.
wins in the last 10 years than any program.
That's like LeBron James getting all these points playing on a losing team. Sorry,
Even in
Bill.
the title game.
That is not even close to the same thing.
It's stat padding. Win something. Listen, next week when we do this, we're either talking about we're all going down to New Orleans
Yeah.
or we're recapping the season. So there's a lot riding on these two games for everybody in this chat and in this Zoom. So, boys, I appreciate it. Johnny T-Shirt sponsored us. Gregory Hall ran the live VIP coming off the Epic podcast, and Greg Barnes just doing Greg Barnes things. It's been on the Beat Live with Inside Carolina. What, Gregory?
75% of the people that watch our YouTube stuff are not subscribed. So if you're watching this, I know if you're active in the chat, you're obviously subscribed. But if you're watching this tomorrow or later tonight or whenever, smash that subscribe button. 75% of y'all. We've gotten 1,100 subscribers in the last month. We were campaigning for 10K and all this stuff, and we're already over 11K. We're on our road to 12K. 75% of you are watching right now and are not subscribed. So hit that subscribe button right now.
Get it done. The 12,000th subscriber hangs out with Gregory Hall in the Bowls lot next fall. It'll be fun, boys. Y'all boys have safe travels. We'll get back again next week.